Hi, Craig.
Craig.
Hey, Craig.
Hi, hello, and welcome back to the paddock. Now that the season has come to an end, let's dive into the 2023 IndyCar season recap and all things silly season IndyCar. And oh, it was a silly one, let's be honest. On this episode, you have Casey, Ito, and myself, Hannah. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Casey.
You can't have a 2023 IndyCar recap without talking about Alex Palou's second championship win. He had an incredible season and he was super dominant the whole time. Something that's uncommon in IndyCar, as normally it's a bit more of a fight between everyone. This was his second championship, and his first championship was in 2021. Both were with Chip Ganassi Racing. And he is the first driver to win the championship before the final race since Sebastian Bourdais won the Champ Car Championship in 2007 and Dan Weldon won the IndyCar Championship in 2005. So this was Chip Ganassi's 15th IndyCar title, and their third 1-2 as the person in second. Scott Dixon also drive for Chip Ganassi. So this was their third 1-2 in the championship. The other two were in 2009 and 1998. So, like, way back. Alex just had an amazing season, and he finished all 17 of the races in the top 8. And in IndyCar, the field's a lot bigger. So this was in over 20 cars per race. He was able to finish in the top 8 of every single race. And he also managed to take home 5 wins throughout the year.
And now that we've talked about Alex Palou's amazing championship win, let's go ahead and talk about the Manufacturers Championship. So now that the season is concluded, Chevrolet clinched the Manufacturers Championship for the second year in a row. So the American company beat out its rival Honda by a very small margin to earn its 8th championship since returning to IndyCar competition in 2012. One of the quotes I remember hearing from the championship when it was clinched was, "We really exercise those engines in so many different ways. We love the diversity of it, and it makes days like today very gratifying." This was actually by Chevy Motorsports after they won. And part of the reason Chevy had gained so much ground in the final race, frankly, is because new rivals that had used more than the allotted number of engines that you are allowed to use in the championship. And that actually does not accrue to the manufacturer points that you receive. And so it actually more so negatively impacts them than positively impacts them when it comes to the overall manufacturer championship points. Although Chevrolet does not win any money for this achievement, though going forward, they will now have bragging rights and the ability to market the company's success in advertisements and for public facing products. So I'm interested to see the different advertisements that will come that say what is what with IndyCar and winning that manufacturer championship. So sometimes they're a little interesting.
And now we've talked about, I guess, the winning driver and the winning engine manufacturer for the season, but we also had several drivers that got their first wins this year. So 2023 was Kyle Kirkwood's second season in IndyCar and his first with the Andretti Autosport IndyCar team. Despite this only being his second year in IndyCar, he won his first race at the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach and even won a second race this year at the Music City Grand Prix in Nashville. Both of these wins were the only wins for the entire Andretti Autosport team this year, which was pretty impressive. And so Kyle also works with Brian Herta as one of his race engineer strategists, and he's one of the best in the business and also happens to be Colton Herta's dad. And he also raced in IndyCar as well. So it's kind of a joke that if Brian's your race engineer guy, you're more likely to win. But that combo definitely worked this year for Kyle. And another driver in his second year of IndyCar that won his first race was Christian Lundgaard. The Danish driver was making his way through the Formula side of racing, even competing in F2 for 2 years before making the switch to Indy. He won the Honda Indy Toronto race this year, which was pretty exciting.
Yeah, and from maiden wins, we go to maiden seasons. So, in case you guys didn't know, in IndyCar, to be considered a rookie, you have to have not raced in more than 4 races in a previous season and also have not participated in 8 or more races within your entire career within the series. So, by that definition, 2023 saw 4 rookies. They were Benjamin Pedersen, Marcus Armstrong, Augustine Ganapino, and Stingray Robb. Yes, that's a real person. Love IndyCar names. Benjamin is a Danish-American racer that previously raced in IndyCar Lights and entered the season racing for AJ Foyt Racing. While he finished 27th in the standings, he still managed to get 129 points with a 100% race start. Now, the next rookie on the list, the New Zealander Marcus Armstrong, might be familiar to the listeners that are into F2, as he had previously raced in the F1 feeder series for 3 seasons before making the jump to Indy. Racing for Chip Ganassi Racing, he managed to collect 214 points, allowing him to finish 20th. Next on the list is Agustin Ganapino, the Argentinian racer for Kunotos Hollander Racing, having previously done very well in both Super TC 2000 and Turismo Carretera. While he wasn't as dominant in IndyCar just yet, he still managed to finish 21st with 180 points and a perfect race start record. Now, last but not least, we have Stingray Robb. The American was racing for Dale Coyne Racing, having moved up from Indy Lights, having finished runner-up in that series 2 years ago. He was able to amass 147 points, and that meant he finished 23rd in the standings this season. And while I must say the rookies didn't make any splashes, like we didn't see any race wins or podiums or what have you, they still had decent results because, as Casey mentioned, there are more than 20 racers in the series. And I, for one, can't wait to see what they do next.
Well, and to add on to kind of how impressive Marcus Armstrong's win of Rookie of the Year was, this year he actually only raced on road and street courses. He didn't race on any of the ovals, which means despite not racing in 5 of the 17 races, he was still able to get the most points out of all the rookies, which is pretty impressive, I find. So, but on from the rookies to, I guess, the biggest event, the Indy 500. Most people, even if you don't, follow IndyCar, you've probably heard of the Indy 500 at some point in your life. And this year, it was an eventful race before the race even started. So the way Indy qualifying works is that they have this whole qualifying weekend, and there's different heats and everything, and only 33 cars can start, but more than 33 cars will try to qualify, so you can get knocked out. And Graham Rahal was knocked out of qualifying at the very last second by his teammate Jack Harvey. And this meant he failed to qualify exactly 30 years after his father, Bobby Rahal, failed to qualify for the 1993 Indy 500. And it was his whole family was there, everyone was crying, and it was pretty heartbreaking to kind of see. But then, so onto another racing driver, Steven Wilson was able to qualify for the race, but was injured in the practice after qualifying. So he ended up getting a broken vertebrae from the crash, and this meant he would be unable to compete in the Indy 500. And so the team actually called on Graham Rahal to race in his place in the number 24 car, which meant he got knocked to the back of the pack, but he would be able to race. But don't worry, Steven Wilson is okay, and he's recovering well. Pretty soon after it happened, they were giving everyone updates because everyone was concerned, obviously, but he's doing well. Just was not able to compete. Now on to the actual race, now that it started. So Alex Palou started on pole, a common occurrence of the season, and was leading the race and kind of swapping the lead back and forth with Rinus VeeKay until the second round of pit stops, in which Felix Rosenqvist and Pato O'Ward of McLaren took and kept swapping the lead between them. So Stingray Rob brought out the first caution on lap 91. There are 200 laps in the race, if you did not know. Luckily, he was uninjured, but during the pit stops that resulted from that caution, Rinus VeeKay swerved and hit Alex Palou in the pit lane. So as they were all trying to get back on track, they hit each other. Both cars were able to keep racing, but neither of them would lead the race again. And we saw some good racing for a while, with Marcus Ericsson and Josef Newgarden temporarily taking the lead, a lot of swapping going around, passing. More pit lane collisions, of course, but this time with Roman Grosjean and Colton Herta. Roman Grosjean would then go on to hit the wall on lap 149, bringing out the second caution. And he is okay, just putting that out there. But the first red flag of the race happened on lap 184, when Felix Rosenqvist slid wide after Joseph passed him, which caused him to hit Kyle Kirkwood. The impact caused Kyle to lose a tire, then hit the wall, flip, and slide upside down on the windscreen, across the track. It was horribly dramatic. I watched it live, and it was oh my god. Because they showed the cockpit camera as well, so from Kyle's perspective of the whole thing, it was insane. And the tire that broke off actually went over the catch fence that's supposed to catch the tire, and actually hit someone's car in the parking lot. So, the tether broke, and it just flew off, and so it hit this poor lady's car. Luckily, she received a tour of, the track, and she also got a new car as compensation for, I guess, your car being destroyed by a IndyCar tire during the race. But let's just say that this is not a common occurrence, and they definitely did some investigations afterwards, because the tires are not supposed to fly off like that. They're supposed to remain tethered to the car. But the race started again under a caution. But during this time, Pato O'Ward spun and ended up hitting the wall, causing a chain reaction of crashes behind him, which brought out the second red flag on lap 92. Again, reminder, there are only 200 laps in this race. So Scott McLaughlin hit Simon Pagenaud, who then trying to avoid that, August Canapino had when he was trying to avoid it, he spun and hit the wall and then went airborne after he hit Pato, who was just kind of chilling on track after he hit the wall. Luckily, all drivers were okay, but it was just chaos. And the chaos continued, because just as the green flag racing continued, as they were waving the green flag, a 5-car accident happens, which initially brings out the caution, but then finally a third red flag is called on lap 198. This year was the first time an Indy 500 race had 3 red flags in the history of the running. So a lot was happening. And since there were only 2 laps left of the race, officials decided to restart the race as soon as the cars reached the start-finish line, and then basically have a 1-lap shootout for the win. Because they didn't want to end the race under any kind of caution or anything. They wanted it to be green flag racing. But that meant it was basically a 1-lap free-for-all. Basically, just as long as you could make it across the finish line at that point and not crash. And on this final lap, Josef Newgarden was able to pass the reigning Indy 500 winner, Marcus Ericsson, for the lead, and took his first Indy 500 win after racing in IndyCar for almost 12 years. So it was everyone was waiting for it to happen. Everyone knew eventually it had to have happened, but it was so exciting when it finally did. He was the first American driver to win the Indy 500 since 2016, and the first from Tennessee. And instead of just stopping his car on the line and celebrating there, on the line of bricks, he actually decided to jump through, the fence into the stands and started celebrating with fans just, in the crowd. So if you had seats, I guess, along the start-finish line, you got to celebrate Josef Newgarden's win with him, because he was literally just in the crowd. So that was a very unique and fun celebration to see.
I just want to say I love that. And going forward, if I go to the Indy 500, I'm going to sit in the grandstand in hopes that that happens again and getting to celebrate that with him. I feel like that would be very cool. I don't know. That's just me though.
Honestly, Hannah, I definitely agree. And from a crazy Indy 500, let's go to a crazy silly season because it was definitely delivering this year. And this is all as of October 2nd, so maybe we'll get some more silly stuff going before start of next season. So let's first start with the people that left mid-season. And honestly, the biggest one in my eyes was Connor Daly when he departed Ed Carpenter Racing. And I just remember reading that and being honestly in shock. However, it also seems that he recovered quite well after that very abrupt ending. He's driven 3 IndyCar races for Meyershank Racing as a substitute for injured Simon Pagenaud, also replacing Jack Harvey in the number 30 Dallara Honda at Raul Letterman Lenigan Racing for August 27th at the Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway. He sat in the cockpit of a Dreyer and Reinbold entry at Nitrocross in Utah. Plus, he even switched series and started in the Craftsman Truck Series in NASCAR at Mid Ohio. Talk about a multi talent. And even while he wasn't driving, he worked as a color analyst on ESPN's Thursday Night Thunder for the Superstar Racing Experience. So we can definitely say he wasn't bored. However, as of now, none of these opportunities have led to a full-time race seat for 2024, sadly. I really hope he gets one, but who knows?
And another driver that unfortunately had to leave this season, it wasn't really because of the team or anything, it was actually because he got injured. So during the Mid-Ohio race this year, Simon Pagenaud's car lost the brakes entirely on turn 4, causing the car to go airborne and then barrel roll over the gravel trap into the barrier. Thankfully, he was able to make it out of the car pretty quickly, and you could see him moving around and everything. But since then, he wasn't allowed to start the race, and he has been suffering from long-term, described as concussion-like symptoms that have prevented him from racing. I'm hoping that he has a good recovery and that we can see him racing again whenever he's ready, be that an IndyCar or any other kind of racing series. But with concussions, it's really tricky, and you can't really rush the recovery of that. So, hopefully he takes as much time as he needs to, be ready to go again.
As someone who has gone through a concussion before, they're not fun to come back from. And sometimes it could take months or years to fully recover to feel like yourself again. So, yes, take as much time as you need to fully recover and be better. So when you're back in the seat racing in any form of fashion, you're ready to go and you're not taking 10 steps forward and 2 steps back and all that. So let's talk about the last driver who kind of left mid-season this year. So driver Jack Harvey entered his second season with Rahal Letterman Langinin. Sorry if I said that wrong. Racing in 2023. But after a long rumored split, and I mean long rumored split, this rumor went on for weeks on end with no one confirming. And Jack Harvey was officially confirmed. But even after the split was confirmed, he decided not to contest the final 3 races of the season, and opted just to kind of make that clean slate instead of being like, hey, I want to race these last 3 races of the season and then do a clean split. He was just like, I'm not going to fight this. I'm not going to fight the contract. It is what it is. But RLL said that the reason for not retaining Harvey was This is quoted. He committed fully to the team, but for whatever reason, we weren't able to achieve the results that he or the team deserves, and we wish him well with the future. While we have no idea what 2024 holds for him, hopefully it's a seat of racing, but we shall see what that looks like.
So, from drivers that left mid-season to, well, one driver that left at the end of the season. When it was announced that Roman Grosjean ways with Andretti after 2023, honestly, I can't say I was too surprised. Because while he wasn't bad during the 3 seasons in Indy after leaving F1, he also wasn't great. He finished in the top 3 6 times, but never on the top step. And sadly, a lot of the bad habits that he picked up in F1, namely crashing, followed him to IndyCar, meaning it was only a matter of time that he would no longer be there. While there were rumors he would move to Dale Coyne Racing, it is unlikely as they have a solid stable of young talent. Then again, he is a comeback kid. Just remember that accident at the 2020 Bahrain Grand Prix, where he got the nickname Fireproof as per his TikTok bio. So, honestly, he and me too, to an extent, are optimistic that he will still race next year. Maybe not in IndyCar, but what about VEC or IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship Series? After all, he's part of Lamborghini's Hypercar project, and they are set to enter the 24 Hours of Le Mans and more races next season. So I feel like his World Endurance Championship racing stint could be a possibility. Now, as to who's replacing Grosjean at Andretti, well, that would be Marcus Ericsson. While the announcement was hardly a surprise, it is still sad because he had such a good run with Chip Ganassi over the last 4 years, bringing home 2 wins in 2021 and an Indy 500 win in 2022, which, as Casey probably mentioned, was Chip's first win in over a decade. And even 2023 had the markings of a title fight at the start, but we'll see what he does at Andretti. I, for one, can't wait.
Yeah, Andretti are building like a strong team. And so it'll be interesting to see if they can bring it to Chip Ganassi next year and maybe have more than 2 wins. We shall see. But the next is probably my favorite silly season announcement, as I am a huge Earl McLaren fan for IndyCar. And so David Malukas will be joining McLaren for 2024, which I think is a great fit. I think he's a great addition to the team and can't wait to see what next year will bring, both on and off the track. Hopefully Alexander Rossi can keep his sanity next year with both Pato and David being his teammates. To kind of get a view on David's personality, I highly recommend checking out his Twitter. And let's just say Zach Brown for sure has a type, because if you look at a picture of David Malukas, he looks a little familiar, perhaps to some McLaren F1 drivers we know. But since getting into IndyCar, like myself getting into IndyCar earlier this year, David Malukas, who I don't quite know how this came about, is called Lil Dave, has become one of my favorite drivers in the series. He was runner-up in the 2021 Indy Lights Series, and he made his IndyCar debut in 2022 with Dale Coyne Racing in partnership with HMD Motorsports, which is, I believe, like his family's company, and has had a solid racing career so far. Lucas has 2 podiums in IndyCar, both at Gateway. He got second in 2022 and third this year. So maybe next year he can get first for a full set of Gateway podiums.
And to go into a little bit more of some of the team moves that were made. So for the 2024 season, Meyer Shank Racing side signed Felix Rosenquist. Sorry if I said that wrong. Okay. Who is a race winning veteran on a multi year contract. So, next year's IndyCar season, we will see MSR have a complete reset with an all new driver lineup as the team sets its sight on a successful 2024 season amid not doing very, very great last season, kind of like a midfield team. But Felix said, I am super excited to start the next chapter of my IndyCar career together with MSR. This will actually be a great opportunity for myself and MSR to elevate and get to the next level together. He is also pretty excited to get to work with his old friend Tom Blokenfist again, and he's ready to start working together and getting the next season started. So we'll see and hopefully wish the best for him and MSR. But now let's move on about some of the new rookies on the grid. So, like previously mentioned when I was talking about Felix, he has a new teammate, Tom Blomqvist. If you have watched IMSA prototype racing over the past 2 seasons, you know who Tom is already. The prototype star has 3 major endurance racing wins and a championship to his name with Acura in just a season and a half with Meyer Shank Racing, who also sponsors him in IMSA prototype racing. Fun fact. So now Tom is taking that speed into single seaters, joining MSR and IndyCar for the full 2024 season officially. So Tom said after getting the news of the multi-year contract with MSR that finally he would like to say a huge thank you to Mike and Jim and all the partners for the opportunity and for fully believing in him. It has been a good ride the last 2 years in IMSA, but I've been itching to make the step up to IndyCar, and this is the opportunity I'm eager and motivated to make. And most of IndyCar is an incredible competitive series, and I'm under no illusions in how difficult this championship can be, but I'm extremely motivated to make the most of this exciting news and challenge. Tom.
And so IMSA actually does a lot of races at the same time as IndyCar. So it's kind of like a support series in some way for some of the races, if not all of the races, and there's like different varieties of IMSA racing. So it's cool to see someone make the jump from one type of racing to the other. And another person who has kind of made the jump into IndyCar is Yuri Vips, who, after replacing Jack Harvey for the last 2 races of this year, the Estonian racing driver will continue on to race for Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing full-time in 2024. He competed in the Formula Feeder Series up to and including F2 and was even the Red Bull Racing reserve driver for the 2022 season before he was fired for saying a racial slur on a stream. This will be his first return to racing after the incident, and hopefully he has learned from his mistakes and that kind of behavior is not tolerated in racing or anywhere. Although the way the IndyCar team kind of explained his backgrounds to viewers on the broadcast was with a poorly designed PowerPoint slideshow, with the slides only saying 3-time F3 winner, F1 reserve driver for Red Bull Racing, fired by Red Bull for using racial slur, and then immediately followed by IndyCar debut for RLL Racing, in that order. It was an interesting choice, so I highly recommend you go look at that. But we'll see more, I guess, of what he can bring to IndyCar next year, as that will be his first full season.
As for the third rookie for 2024, we have Linus Lundqvist. After having won Indy Lights in 2022 and a few races for Meyer Shank Racing this season, it honestly was no surprise that Linus Lundqvist would get a full-time seat with Chip Ganassi Racing for 2024, replacing fellow Swede Marcus Ericsson at the team with a multi-year contract.
Our final rookie that's been announced so far for 2024 is Kiffin Simpson. He is an 18-year-old Caymanian racing driver He was born in Barbados. So, like, I think it meant, like, Cayman Islands, maybe? But it's listed as Caymanian. And he will be driving next year for Chip Ganassi Racing. So he's pretty young to be making the jump up to IndyCar. He's only 18. And he made his single-seater debut in 2020 in the US F4 Championship and recently finished his second season of the Indy NXT / Lights. It changed names, but they're the same thing. So it'll be curious to kind of see how he does up in the big boys of full IndyCar.
Now, we talked about rookies, but what about renewed contracts? Well, I mentioned Marcus Armstrong before. What I didn't mention was that he was Rookie of the Year ahead of Agustin Canapino. And as Casey mentioned, he competed in races than Canapino, which made him getting Rookie of the Year even more impressive. So it frankly was a no-brainer that Chip Ganassi announced that they would extend his contract not just for 1 year, but for multiple years.
And now, kind of the one that I'm most excited to talk about. So go ahead, let's buckle up because this is actually going to be an interesting one. And I honestly couldn't make this up even if I wanted to. So let's go ahead and get started. Alex Palou. What a 2 years. So the IndyCar 2023 champion, Alex Palou, is facing legal action against him yet again. Last year, he was sued by his current team at the time, Chip Ganassi Racing, for a breach in the contract, as stated that he would not be racing for Ganassi in 2023, with that McLaren then announced that it had signed Palou for the 2023 season. So a settlement was determined shortly after the news had broken about McLaren, resulting in Alex racing with Ganassi in 2023 while participating in an F1 testing and development program with McLaren, who actually ended up paying Paolo's legal fees, just FYI. It was widely assumed, though, that Alex would jump ship in 2024 when his contract expired with Chip Ganassi. Now, McLaren is suing Alex for damages related to a broken 2024 contract. Ay, this man can't catch a break. So, according to the Indianapolis Star, Palou was served with UK commercial court documents in 2 suits from McLaren Racing Limited and McLaren Indy LLC against his racing entity ALPA, Racing USA, and himself. So the newspaper believes the suits aren't an attempt to force Alex to honor his contract and race for the team next year, but to claim damages in the range of 20 million to 30 million. That is a crazy amount of money to ask for, but it is F1 and Indy. So the damages include a 2024 salary advance that McLaren claims it paid Palou and the cost for F1 practice and private test sessions that Alex drove with the team. And according to leaked messages from Zach Brown, Alex had no intentions of honoring his contract, and that this had come in spite of him already receiving an advance in his salary for 2024. It read, "This is incredibly disappointing considering the commitment he had made to us both directly and publicly and our significant investment in him based on that commitment." I mean, they paid for his legal fees. Come on now. Brown also pointed out the time, money, and resources preparing to welcome Alex into our team because they believed in him and were looking forward to IndyCar wins with him were kind of upsetting. While Alex has indicated that he won't race for McLaren in 2024, it isn't 100% certain where he will step behind. However, all signs points towards Alex remaining with Ganassi. The driver team pairing has seemingly healed all past wounds, whatever those wounds quite may be. To be frankly honest, I mean, you leave, then you come back because of contract, and now you want to stay. Okay, sure, man, you do you. Hopefully, as we get closer to the 2024 season roundup, we will get a clearer picture of what the future will actually hold for Alex, and hopefully not in debt by $30 million. But we shall see how this whole contract and legal thing works out for him.
So actually, Chip Ganassi has confirmed that he will be driving for them next year. So he will be defending his title with them.
Okay.
Legal thing is still going on, but I think another part of it is that he was supposed to be at like all the races from Singapore on, like F1 races from Singapore on, and he was just like, no. Which I mean makes sense. Like I'm pretty sure like he has a baby that's going to be born soon, so it makes sense he'd kind of want to be home for that. But yeah, so that's like another cost that might be considered in that legal debacle. But the fact that it happened like twice is a little crazy.
Yeah, and on the note of him supposedly being a reserve driver for McLaren F1 from Singapore onwards, those duties are now being carried out by Pato O'Ward.
And related to Pato, he finally joined the Super License Club as of the final. Like he finished 4th this year, which was exactly where he needed to finish in order to get the Super License. So very exciting. He can officially be a reserve driver, and we're hoping to maybe see him in F1 someday.
So I'm like Casey in this matter. I love McLaren Indy. I mean, I don't even get me started about their actual media presence. It's hilarious and fun to watch. But anyways, in regards to Pato, so excited that he finally got his super license, and I really hope to see a future of him further in motorsports outside of Indy potentially, and or Indy championships. But with him being a reserve driver now for McLaren, I'm hoping we get to see him in some maybe like testing with like him getting to drive and getting to see like how he does in the car and not just like the sim.
So he's driven a couple practice sessions before, I believe at Abu Dhabi, and I think he's going to do it again this year. But I think so. Alex this year did a lot of some of the tire testing that they do with Pirelli. And so now that, as long as it doesn't interfere with IndyCar schedule, I'm pretty sure that now Pato will be doing that kind of like tire testing, but it's a lot longer than just a free practice session. And you can kind of learn more just about like how the car works and everything like that. But I don't know if we'll see him at McLaren in F1 because I'm pretty sure they're locked in with Lando and Oscar for a while now. But who knows what the 2024 silly season in F1 will bring. And perhaps that'll combine with the IndyCar silly season for just pure chaos.
Honestly, I would be totally for like a glimpse of silly season chaos between the two series because they run so predominantly together in regards to like they feed into each other with some of their drivers. Some, but not always. But, anyways, that's what I'm going to just go with for now because I want to. And would love to see like the craziness just erupt into like a volcano, to be honest with you, and just see the chaos like foresee in our eyes.
And honestly, we've seen mostly drivers go from F1 to Indy, but not really the other way around. So it would be super interesting to see it happen the other way for once.
Well, as of October 2nd, the FIA has approved Andretti Global's bid to F1. So, like, technically they can race. Now they just have to deal with the commercial rights aspect with, like, FOM and everything like that. But that does mean 2 open seats. And they have an IndyCar team. But also they've been they've talked about how they kind of want to bring someone from IndyCar into F1, which I think would be interesting to reverse the typical path that people make. But the process that's just one more checkbox on the process, so we'll see how that goes.
When I think of Andretti being on the grid, I like them bringing drivers from Indy. The two people that come to mind when I think of that is Pato and Alex. Like, they seem like the most logical choice in the moment for me, just based off they both like have been reserve drivers, they've both done like sim testing, all that. So they're a little bit more aware of kind of what's going on. But who knows? We may get like a left fielder.
They have mentioned that they want to try and run an American driver on the team combined with someone who has more experience with an F1. So on that, like, they always throw around Colton Herta's name, but like it's kind of a running joke at this point that he doesn't have the super license points. And with his past two finishes, like, it's not looking good. But with the rise of his teammate Kyle Kirkwood, another American, also from Florida, and I think he like grew up with like Logan and everything. Potentially Kyle Kirkwood could be like the American on the grid, or maybe like they decide to pull Pato in because he does have that dual experience, and then maybe even Checo, and they can have a full Mexican lineup just for fun. But I really think there are a lot of possibilities, and potentially depending on how next season goes and like the order of the championship, because IndyCar doesn't give as many points, super license points, as like F2. So only the winner in IndyCar gets like the 40 points that you need, and it goes down from there. Versus F2, it's like the top 3. So it'll be interesting kind of where people finish and how that affects who would be eligible. But I guess despite, super license points and everything, what are you guys excited for to see next year with like the 2024 IndyCar season?
So, honestly, I'm super excited what 2024 will hold for IndyCar, especially for Marcus Ericsson, because I feel like that move is truly one to watch. So, yeah. And if you've been listening to us for a while, you know that we do these pre-outro situations. And because for some, we do fun facts. That's why we thought for this IndyCar episode, why not do an IndyCar fun fact? Did you know that for the Indy 500, milk is drunk on the podium instead of champagne, like in most other racing series, and also other IndyCar races?
And now that the IndyCar season has been rounded out and come to an end, or at least we hope so, you may see a little bit more of a silly season as we close out the year. Let us know your favorite moment of the season on our socials. Everywhere we are Paddock Girls Podcast, except on Twitter. There you go find us at Paddock Girls Pod. As always, don't forget to rate, review, and share the podcast wherever you listen from, like Apple, Spotify, and now even on TikTok. Thank you for joining us in the paddock today. See you in Qatar. Bye, Craig.
Bye, Craig.
Bye, Craig.